Can you comment on the recent LA City Council vote to ban fracking, and is it worth anything? And
Yeah. Well, I think we both can. I alluded to that, but yeah. So I lobbied to get that bill introduced with Food and Water Watch 7 months ago and helped write the motion. And for the last 7 months, been working in key swing districts where we knew we would need the vote, and just doing, I wanted to say this too, to take a step back. Exactly what I work with communities to do, Donna, Ward, and CoWatchingOilLA did by themselves. You know what I mean? This is what I work in. A lot of communities don't know what to do. You guys just did everything.
I don't have a job. That's not what happened.
But you guys did. But let's really work with is going to be like, okay, well, let's mobilize. Let's make sure we get community meetings. Let's walk. Let's get 400 people in a church. Let's call our representatives. If you guys did it all, I should have been like, wow, these guys know how to organize. So anyway, to answer your question, 7 months ago that bill was introduced. We've been organizing it in key swing districts where there's not necessarily active wells happening, where we knew we would need their votes. And then momentum happened here. The historic West Adams well is in the council president's district. And once you have the council presidents, he kind of leads the city council. Things got pushed forward a few months before we thought it was going to come up for a vote. So right now it's passed 10-0. However, it's not done yet. What they did is they passed a motion saying, yes, we agree the city attorney should write an ordinance to have a moratorium on fracking and all these extreme drilling and waste disposal techniques in the city of LA. So they all said, yes, we should move forward with this. They have to come back, the final language for final vote, once the language is done from the city attorney. So I want to make sure everyone here today signs a petition in support of the LA moratorium and a statewide bill. And we'll email you when it's out for the final vote to come to city council. But we packed it with 300 people, 2 days on the same week to get it where it was now. So it's really about that physical force of showing the city council that they better follow the political well.
But the other thing is, the Murphy oil field at 2126 West Adams, which you guys can drive past on your way home, was a key factor in that vote passing. There's no one-sided coin. A methane gas leak was discovered on an established oil field that was being run by an established natural resources development company by a random AQMD inspection. For them to have voted no when faced with that in a black neighborhood that they had just given historic preservation overlay zone to. I mean, we got our historic preservation overlay zone in January of 2011. And so in January of 2014, a mere 3 years later, you've got a methane gas leak that could blow the whole place up. They really couldn't say no to it. So also our mobilization was a huge factor. Pastor Kevin Sauls at Holman United Methodist Church has been a force of nature. Holman United Methodist Church is nothing to pussyfoot around with. They have hundreds and hundreds of congregational members. And City Council President Herb Wesson goes there. Also, Holly Mitchell is in our district. Like, it just happened to be that the stars aligned at the right time with the right people, and the vote was already in place. So we got very, very lucky. Also, we had a lot of media. The LA Times covered us, KPCC covered us, KTLA covered us, the neighborhood papers, Morningside Heights, LA Watts Times. We got lucky. So, but the fight now is this is where the lobbyists come in. Because this is where the language is written. What is well stimulation? For my money, well stimulation is anything other than the little straw in the pool of oil. When Mother Nature says enough, it's enough. There are things called injection wells. They drill a well next to the production well, which produces oil, and then they push water or chemicals out of the injection well to boost the water in the production well. I don't want that to happen. The well said, I'm done. Leave me alone. Is acidization stimulation. is using a gas pump where they push natural gas into the bottom of the well. And of course, gas is lighter than the oil, so it mixes together and it rises. I don't want that. I don't want all those chemicals in my neighborhood. And the other thing, that's the other thing. This is a moratorium on urban drilling. And we spoke earlier, Christina and I spoke earlier, not that I'm for fracking anywhere. I'm very anti-fracking. But you're talking about drilling in a neighborhood that has the highest population density in a very population dense city. You're talking about urban drilling and fracking and very risky production techniques in an area where a lot of people don't have cars. We have a lot of seniors. We have a lot of children. A block from that well is Whitney High, which is LAUSD. So it's union. You've got a problem there. You've got a problem with UCLA, Clark Library, their union. You've got a problem with the special needs daycare. It joins with USC, their union. You have a problem on one of those sites, you have a problem. You have a lawsuit problem. But a block from the well is Whitney High. It is a special needs high school. Some of those children are blind. Some of them are schizophrenic. Some of them have extreme autism. You cannot tell these kids to put their sweater over their mouth and run to the bus on the corner if something goes wrong. This is a population that is extremely vulnerable. And again, that worked in our favor. And Freeport McMoRan is going to have a very difficult time finagling the language. But we have had an impact. The day that the LA moratorium was voted on, 2 newspapers were brought to our attention. The LA Watts Times and Morningside News, both of which are black newspaper publications, neighborhood publications. And when you open them up, first page, full page ad, 4-color ad, Freeport McMoRan, bringing clean energy and jobs to your neighborhood.
And I can tell you that happened in all these Colorado towns or pretty small populations. The oil industry spent millions of dollars to get full page ad mailers, but they won by grassroots organizing. And because on this issue, we have the facts and we have the science. And as she alluded to, actually the entire fracking industry uses the same PR firms that the tobacco industry used. So they are experts in just lying to your face when the science is clear. And then we have peer-reviewed studies on this. And there's a lot of science that's left to be unanswered too. There's a lot of unanswered questions. So even if you just purely believe in the precautionary principle, there's enough on this. So.
But this is where you get involved and you call your city council rep and say, you call the city attorney's office and say, I want to read the language. I want to participate. I want well stimulation to be defined as a dangerous practice. I want injection wells to be defined as dangerous production practices. I want acidization. I want gravel packing. I want sand packing, where they shoot tens of thousands of pounds of gravel into the well and break the rock up that way. Anything but what is just called traditional straight drilling. And this is where you get in there. Because let me tell you, they're in there ahead of you. And campaign contributions make a difference. And oil companies are like drug cartels. They go and they find people to make political campaign donations in their name. They go and they find the people in the neighborhood who are complaining and they donate to their nonprofit fund. And if you think it's not happening with Freeport McMoRan, look at Freeport McMoRan's donations in the state of Louisiana, where there's very, very different regulatory standards, where there's very different view of oil and gas production in the state of Louisiana. We're the land of granola here, people. If you're not a fruit or a flake, you're a nut. This is California. We lead the way in environmental standards. It costs us money. Businesses don't like it. It's a hassle, but we have cleaner air than we used to have. We have cleaner water than we used to have. Recent regulation being taken into account. We have come to realize that our natural resources, our beaches, our parks are a huge moneymaker for us, and they are of value to our state. So Freeport McMoRan is already in there. Every oil company in the state of California is already in talking to your elected official. You need to talk to them.
We can give you sample language after this email you to people to call.
Like, I know where you live. No.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank Adele, who came across the street to Solidarity Hall, where I volunteered.
Right on.
With the Freedom Socialist Party.
I think it's too.
We are sitting on a time, obviously, we're sitting on a time bomb, and I think the work that you're doing, community organizing, all this work is very, very important. There's there's no question about it, and you're building a base of support. But I'm a socialist and have been for a long time because it seems that the economy we live in, which is all about profit, right, capitalism, they always find some place, whether it's oil or it's lead. I mean, there's so much pollution and, destruction of the environment. And I was just thinking, it's like, well, they do this here, and then there's also very much of an international issue. And this is one of the reasons the Freedom Socialist Party is holding a convention here in Los Angeles at the end of May, and we welcome everybody to come. It's the ASME headquarters on Chateau Place.
Oh, that's in my office.
Great. Anyway, we're going to be talking about that.
Well then, Dolores, you don't have any excuse for not going.
Definitely talk about the environment and all these issues. The question I had is, of course, you raised the whole issue of safety, right? Because that's a lot of children's safety, senior safety. And I know in the workplace today, whether it's the people working in the medical centers at UCLA or whatever, they're going out. People are talking about striking, right? Over the safety issue, not enough staffing, conditions that make things dangerous for people. So I guess my question to you is, do you see support from organized labor on this issue? Is there something that, I'm going to recall AFSCME retirees, American Federation of State Municipal Employees. Is this an area where we could help? I mean, if I went to one of my retiree meetings, or there's a group called Labor United for Universal Health Care, which meets, is there something that we could do to bring this to people anyway, that's a good question.
Yeah, I'm sure we both have something to that. Short answer, yes. Yes. There's a statewide coalition that we helped launch too called Californians Against Fracking, which has 200 organizations working for a ban on fracking in the state and working great together. We have California Nurses United and California Nurses Association that we're working very closely with, and they're an incredible ally here on the ground. So that's one of the labor organizations that we're working very closely with right now. However, beyond that, labor is sort of like the last thing that we're looking to move more into right now, especially here in LA. There is certain unions like building trades which have already been very clear that they're not going to support a moratorium. I'm talking about jobs in the state, but really we need to reach out to AFSCME, to SCIU, to talk about the real effects of these jobs too, which there's a worker in Bakersfield 2 years ago that walked out into a field and got boiled alive. There's silica, known silica poisoning that happens with this. So you're looking at the type of jobs. But the real fact is, whatever you invest in, there's going to be jobs. Shouldn't we be investing in something that's long-term sustainability, long-term jobs that are not going to hurt our community? So yes, we need people to get endorsements. I can give you endorsement forms to reach out to folks, get anything you need to start reaching out to more unions.
One of the unions I would suggest that you reach out to, and that we reach out to. And you'll like the second part of this as a socialist, I'm sure. LAUSD. When I talk to Fed EPA, when I talk to DOGGR, the Department of Geological Geothermal Resources. When we talked to DOGGR, and I explained, I went around the clock face like I did with you, with what is around the Murphy oil field. He's the young kid at DOGGR. He said, this is typical. This is where they drill. So you have LA Mid-City Magnet is a half a block from the field. Whitney High is 2 blocks north. And on the same block as Whitney High is 24th Street Elementary School, which has 950 children under the age of 10. That's LAUSD, that's a union.
Yeah.
Now, what was interesting, and I was talking to this lady here, before we started, was PXP owned the field before Freeport bought it. And Freeport just bought it and put it right in its pocket. You keep doing what you're doing, we're just taking your profits. CalPERS, the California Personal Employees Retirement System, was the largest stockholder for PXP. that 40% of PXP stock was held by CalPERS. And when Freeport McMoRan took it over, CalPERS had a moment of panic that was so substantial that Freeport flew somebody out here to explain to them the security of their retirement, you know, the return on their investment, you know, that sort of thing. So, you know, if you have that, you have a health risk on school campuses. Not just the people who attend there, not just the parents who could sue the oil company, but the employees. You know, because the oil companies will tell you there's no seepage. You know, the water that they shoot down the well just goes down the well and comes right back up. It doesn't spread out. There's no gas seepage. There's no, you know, when they put gas down the well, it just stays down the well. It doesn't go out through the soil. You know, LAUSD has water fountains. They're watering the grounds with, you know, gray water. All vulnerability, vulnerability, vulnerability. The retirement homes have insurance companies that I'm sure would be happy to sue an oil company when these elderly seniors start to have health problems that can be directly related to it. The St. Andrew's Garden, those people are on city housing. You're talking about the city suing the oil company. I mean, there are a lot of people you can reach out to. But the people we're reaching out to next is the Catholic Archdiocese. Because the majority landholder for these fields is the Catholic Archdiocese. And the Pope has come out against fracking, and the Catholic Archdiocese has had nothing to say. And I guarantee you they are going to be dragged into the Elenco city attorney's case and any state's attorney criminal case. I guarantee it. Because they are the landholder and the oil company is the tenant. And when you're the property owner, you are responsible for the violations of your tenant. You don't get off the hook that way.
In answer to the sister's question down here, we just had our political convention in Sacramento. Apparently fracking was a hot topic up there. And someone from Food and Water Watch has contacted my assistant executive director, and he's asked me about it, and just so happens I live in the area where it's going on, so I was able to educate him on what was going on. So if there's some sort of resolution to support Senator Mitchell's bill, or some other kind of resolution or some other action that the group would like to have, just let me know, and I can discuss it with my boss, the guy that signs my check.
And your hat is in UNNCC, right?
Yes, I'm a board member of UNNC, and I don't know if you know Steve Peckman. When he first brought the issue to our board with all these questions about what was going on at the drill site, I put the motion on the floor for a resolution for a moratorium to Senator Wesson. And then we had the community group where DonnaAnn spoke so eloquently and educated over 300 people about what was going on. And so it's just kind of been going on from there. So now we have UNNC has a subcommittee where they're looking at the city and the state's regulations surrounding fracking so that we can come up with some additional resolutions and the neighborhood council is advisory to the city council. We don't have the authority to do something, but we act as a group. And so when the group is saying something to our city council person, they listen. And so they're working on they're looking at the regulations for both the state and the city to see if something can be done to strengthen those rules and regulations governing the drilling and the fracking.
Well, the first thing is to support the LA City moratorium.
Pardon?
To support the Los Angeles City moratorium.
But the other thing is, and this is very important what Dolores has brought up, they are regulated. They're like any other business, they're regulated. But these are permits that were written in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s. Technology has changed. So should these oil companies be allowed to be grandfathered in to do whatever they want under a permit that was written before these chemicals were even known to be effective in an oil well? So this is where citizens can get in and say, you have Laura Myers, and let's give a plug for UNNC, it is United Neighbors Neighborhood Council. They are fantastic, but Laura Myers is a paperwork eagle eye. I mean, It's 80 pages of permitting history, in 8-point font, single line. And she has gone through and she has found, where the weakness in the permit is. To say, we're not really sure that this should be allowed to continue blindly and reevaluate. And you can always ask your elected official to reevaluate. Be very nice to your elected officials. They deal with a lot of issues. Your issue is not always their issue. They need to stay elected to get anything done. As soon as Herb Wesson is not elected, Herb Wesson is just another citizen, on a bus going to Sacramento. So send them lemon bars, send them balloons, send them thank you cards, because they deal, everybody and their brother wants, no, this is the issue you really need to be working on. So we really appreciate, UNNC has been really fantastic in this neighborhood. It got us our HVAC.
My name's Christine. I'm with Radical Women, and we are part of Solidarity Hall, and we're a multi-issue organization. We deal with women's rights, people of color, immigrants, LGBTQ, against wars, and we are certainly environmentalists. And environmentalism is especially one of my main concerns, because we're really losing rapidly, to maintain a safe environment for ourselves and for future generations. And this really is so stimulating for me, and it's frightful. It's happening so quickly. And I agree that, lawsuits are an important way to go to try to regulate and make things work properly. But it seems, and I'm not sure where this is happening, or if it's just beginning to happen, to get the communities really involved and to have some mass demonstrations, to have a loud voice speaking out against it, because lawsuits can take years, and they've got the money and the lawyers to put it off for decades. But we need to have immediate action. I like the idea of the United Front that's formed with all the different groups, but I would like to see, and I'd be happy to work with it to have a mass demonstration now. March from the well to downtown, disrupt traffic, make them uncomfortable, make the voices heard, and let the people of the city know. When we experienced the well problem, when was it about?
It was like 2000 through to about 2006. And even further back, Belmont, it had oil wells underneath the high school site that they were rebuilding in the area. I live here, and this is where I work, the Echo Park neighborhood. And there were old wells, and there was methane gas being released. And rather than just mitigate it, they became this huge debacle, and it lasted about 15 years before they finally did it.
And Holly Mitchell said that at the Holman United Methodist Church meeting on January 11th of this year. She said, I went before the California State Senate, and I was pushing this fracking bill. And when I looked over my shoulder, none of my constituents were behind me. I was alone. And she said, I will stand up and fight for you, but you've got to have my back. And so it was a point well taken. Get on the phone. Send a letter to your council rep. Send a letter to find out who your rep is. Ask to speak with their scheduler. To sit down, 10 minutes. This is my name. This is where I live. This is what I'm concerned about. If there's anything I can do, please call me and let me know. They don't know what you want them to do until you show up and tell them. And then when they call on you, show up. I rode a bus for 12 hours to go to a 3-hour demonstration, and I got a migraine from it. I am 50 years old, ladies. And you too, sir. I am not built to be on a bus with 50 other people for 12 hours. Next time I'm taking my car. And I'm going again. I'm going again because it's coming again. Now I'm lucky. I'm looking for a job, so I've got free time. I have a dog sitter. As far as I know, I have no children, and I don't have a boyfriend. So, but prioritize. Pick your fight. What can you do? Anybody can send an email. Anybody can pick up the phone. The amount of time we spend on Facebook or going to Starbucks or getting our nails done or whatever it is that looking at pictures of cat videos on, you know, we can take that time and, you know, and start a file on your computer. You know, like who is your senator? Who is your congressional rep? Who is your city council person? What's the date of the vote? And you know, just 3 minutes on the phone. You know, it makes a huge difference.
And in response to your question, so Food and Water Watch has monthly meetings the first Tuesday of every month, and these are, we're now forming teams of people that have already been spread out throughout LA, but a lobbying team, an action team, an events team, recruitment team, and this is really what's been able to let us get this far. When we launched this campaign to ban fracking in California 2 years ago, you know, we were laughed at, and we organized to make this happen, and a lot of it was talking to politicians, a lot of it was forcing politicians through political will in their district, but a lot of it was protests and showing increasing pressure, and we had, you know, 400 people at Culver City Hall when the statewide regulatory agency came out to say, hey, we can regulate this, we want your input, and everyone showed up and said, yeah, man, that's what we want.
And I mean, normally you get like 10 or 15 people. I mean, like the numbers just comparatively, like you normally get like a couple of people who show up. So
And
400 is huge.
So we just had a huge protest with the organizers. Donna came too, and we with our statewide coalition of Californians It's Fracking, we organized 28 buses from around the state to go to Sacramento on the same day. 4,000 activists on fracking at the Capitol, calling on Governor Brown and our elected officials to act. And so, huge mobilization happening. And I would love to plan future protests with you here locally and really showing more political pressure.
And we do have one citizen, and she is blonde and very fit, and she has offered to strip off her top and strap herself to the gate of the field. We consider that a back burner option. That's our nuclear option. Okay? That's our nuclear option. So. Did you have
Hi, my name's Tony Mendocino. I'm with the same group, Black Women and Freedom Social Security, but I just wanted to speak. I'm visiting from the Bay Area this weekend, and I'm like, my jaw's dropped. I mean, this is very educational, what you've explained today. I have known about fracking, but I did not realize it was happening where like my friend Wendy lives. You know, like it's very frightening, but I salute you for educating us, and then also connecting up that a lot of times, women are the ones that care for vulnerable populations and making the connection of like we have to fight together with people of color, immigrants, and kids and families that are being affected. But like it basically seems like this was going on unless someone, like Donna, raised the red flag. Like companies are going to do what they want to do for profit unless there's a massive outcry. So I was going to say I'd like to connect the dots where I work at UC Berkeley. I'm a Teamster, and I know a lot of the students were organizing to go to Sacramento on March 15th, and it really opened my eyes a lot. At the same time, I think we do need to pressure Jerry Brown. I mean, local officials are more, connected to communities, but like the Democratic Party and their politics are not really going against the oil industry right now. We're not taxing oil to fund schools and all these other, we don't want oil. The point is, let's talk also about what we want instead. We want clean energy. We want an environment that provides, healthy living conditions and save our ocean. So I think that we need to tell Jerry Brown to get off his pro-fracking, training and get on with helping us to have a better state and a better culture. But we're not really going to get that unless we change our economic system away from profits first. And so I really appreciate this educational. Thank you.
Two things I want to respond to before I forget. One, make clear for everybody talking to unions and people, we don't want taxes to fund our schools from the oil industry. Every state that's passed that, they can't do anything on fracking. The schools, everything is dependent upon it. And actually, I can promise you that when that moratorium bill, maybe not this year, statewide, we're not talking locally, it's probably not going to pass this year again. That will be their thing. Okay, well, let's tax us so we can all get more dependent upon it, and then you'll never get a statewide bill passed. So It's, in the other states, New Mexico, can't go anywhere. So the schools, everything is completely dependent upon that.
Students want stuff.
And that's what they'll do, that's what they'll, instead of buying out people and getting them in schools and groups, the next thing we'll go for is that, that's gonna be their nuclear option, so. But the second thing here is lawsuits, you know, when we came in here, they were just fracking mostly in Baldwin Hills in Los Angeles, there was a lawsuit, a huge one, and people felt screwed, the lawsuit didn't protect them at all. And yes, it's really gonna take, while lawsuits can be very, very helpful, like what the LAC attorney is doing right now with Alenco, really it's going to take, it's political. And Governor Brown right now, I can tell you, he will likely veto a moratorium. And that's why Californians against fracking and repression, specifically Governor Jerry Brown. We modeled this after the work that we've done in New York and other states. But Governor Brown cannot go anywhere. And actually, tonight, he's going to be at the Beverly Hilton, and there's going to be a
Room
protest outside.
6094.
And so he literally cannot go anywhere. And it's so bothering him. It's great, it's gonna get under his skin. And he's realized he's completely head in clouds about this issue. He thinks that fracking has lead to climate change. Hello, he wants to be a climate change leader. He literally is out there giving speeches and getting awards on climate change. And he doesn't think there's any connection. Fracking for oil, burning. Actually, the amount of oil here in California, if we got it all from fracking that they've recently found, same as Keystone as far as climate impact. Keystone XL climate pipeline. And further, he said things, fracking doesn't use a lot of water. He's literally getting educated, and we're gonna make sure he feels sure.
I know you have two, but something I want to say is two things. One, like the Keystone Pipeline, North Dakota, the citizens of North Dakota just put so much pressure on their elected officials. They have blocked the Keystone Pipeline coming through their state. So a single state has been the monkey wrench in the works because you can't skip a state. The other thing is, you are talking about people who have endless amounts of money. In New Mexico, you recently had groundwater contamination by Freeport McMoRan's copper mining. Freeport McMoRan helped to write the legislation, the regulation that they violated. In 2012, Freeport McMoRan was fined $6.8 million in their home state of Arizona for letting a toxic dust cloud roll over a residential community. They helped to write the air quality regulation that they violated. These people are involved with your elected official. You need to be involved with your elected official. And also look at what other people are doing successfully. Look at the lawsuit in Richmond where that gas refinery exploded. Look at what happened in West Virginia when Freedom Industries toxified a river and then were allowed to declare bankruptcy, so they had no financial responsibility to the people they harmed. Look at what happened there. You have to sort of take pages from all these books and work with one another and look at it and say, how can we dovetail this to put us in the strongest position we have?
The very last thing I'll do is to make it clear, Food and Water Watch is the first nonprofit that came out calling for a ban on fracking. We don't think there's a way to regulate it. We don't think there's a way to do it, period. It needs to be done.
Okay.
And so if any of you have any questions about why we're so sure, we're sure because the science is there and happy to answer questions, but I just want to make sure that was clear. You know, we're working on a moratorium here, but our goal was to stop it. You know, that's a stepping stone to permanently stop it.
And if you want to know if fracking is safe or not, Ray Tylerson, Ray is his first name, or Roy? He is the head of Shell Oil, which is Mr. Fracking. They go around the world and they tell everyone that fracking is super safe. So he has this multi-million-dollar compound in Texas. He and his wife live on this ranch. And they wanted to frack near his land. And he signed a petition to ban fracking in his neighborhood because it would adversely affect the value of his property and his health. He put his actual name on it. What a moron. I mean, put your dog's name, like, you know, and of course, you know, and organizations that are unified. It's very cold in here, I know. So, you know, they found it, and of course he had nothing to say. Nothing to say, except, yes, I signed it. So, do you want to do, ladies?
A couple of questions. In your conversations with elected officials and just with everyone across, has anyone mentioned the monetary loss of this moratorium or fracking in Los Angeles overall? Has anyone quantified that to you guys or admitted that to you guys or?
No,
No.
but I will say that Holly Mitchell's, when I spoke to Holly Mitchell, she said she gets the same runaround as we do. Oh, it was an accident. Oh, we didn't fill the form out wrong. Oh, oopsie, there's no downside to this. They're bumping their gums with elected officials as much as they are with us. It's the money behind the scenes that nobody talks about.
Okay. And then I know the city called on investigations by AQMD, by all the departments you guys mentioned. And your example as well, in your backyard, has this triggered any bigger investigations, any comprehensive investigations? Have these started yet, or?
I think what it's done is it's changed AQMD's modus operandi, because AQMD was on the Elenco site over and over and over again. And what their pushback statement was, well, these are acceptable levels. These are acceptable levels. And when state EPA came on board and Fed EPA came on board, they said, these are totally unacceptable levels. What are you talking about? And AQMD said, well, our levels are different from state levels and we need to make some changes. But, AQMD is going to be run, they're going to be dragged into the Elenco lawsuit. Boots on the ground inspectors are going to be called in and said, on this date, did you write this report? On this date, did you this inspection? They lost reports, they lost complaints, they lost documentation. So, again, there's no one-sided point. We got very, very lucky because the Murphy oil field problem was post-Elenco, and they were not about to drop the ball again. So.
And I guess, important too that I haven't mentioned is Baldwin Hills and Inglewood residents have been separated for years. And that is on, actually, the Inglewood oil field is on county land. So this LA City moratorium will not help those residents. First, however, politically, right now, the County Board of Supervisors has been failing that community to protect them from waves of new cancers, from homes that are falling out foundations, which they say, well, we can't prove it's from the oil company, even though I've lived here since the 1940s in this home, and nothing's ever happened, and all of a sudden the oil company reopens, and my home's laying off its foundation. So politically, though, when LA City acts, it's going to be very hard for the people in the county to say, what, we're just screwed because we live right out here? No. So it's a stepping stone. City, county, many other cities and counties, state, and that's what we're building here together.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Oh, you have any question?
Is there now an evacuation plan?
I'm sorry, is there what?
Has an evacuation plan been?
We were told that was one of the problems when the methane gas leak was discovered on the 7th of January. I went up and I looked at the population around the well and I thought, holy moly, how would you get these people out of here in an emergency? And so I went to the fire department around the corner and I went to the fire department down the street. Neither one of them knew what was going on. They didn't have any evacuation plan. I went to the police station, same thing. I went to Kaiser, same thing. And Freeport McMoRan, in their meeting with UNNC, said, yes, those evacuation plans are on file with the central fire stations, the fire chiefs. So when 911 call comes in, they have that evacuation plan on hand. And our response is, well, wouldn't it be nice if you walked, a block and a half around the corner and said, just in case, here's the phone number, here's a layout of the well, the field, here's the evacuation plan, here are the chemicals we have on hand. So the answer to that is yes, we just don't know what that evacuation plan entails. So.
And the other question for the neighborhood council, because
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
in the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, for their X number of open seats, has 60 people left for the position. And a huge number of those people are developers and business. Is anyone running for UNNC who are from the oil industry or from?
In our election coming up, I don't think think so.
Okay, so,
I think they're all residents or stakeholders.
okay. Because that's, I mean, well, the stakeholders, you know, and so.
Speaking of which, I'm running for re-election.
I'm voting for you twice.
I mean, it's one of the things to
Right,
look
of course.
for. And the other is, about the time when you recorded and the meeting at Holman, I watched a film called Bastards at the Table. It's on Netflix. And about an hour in, they're talking about Iran-Contra and the funding of Iran-Contra, which was done through selling cocaine in South Central. And, you know, and it's sort of the same mentality that you spoke about earlier, low-income neighborhoods, disenfranchised people.
Yeah.
And then, you know, our government did that.
Okay, so the board of Freeport McMoRan, the people that are, Henry Kissinger at one point was on the board of Freeport McMoRan. This is not a company to pussyfoot around with. So, okay, we talked before about why did Freeport McMoRan have to buy an oil company? Because of China. Okay, so China has decided to mine its own copper and develop alternative energy. I mean, China is mopping the floor on solar energy, you know, in the world scheme. So, on the board of Freeport McMoRan is Bennett Johnston. Bennett Johnston heads the USC China Commission, which deals with relationships between the United States and China. They also have Stapleton Roy. Stapleton Roy was an ambassador to Indonesia. Are you handing out election material to us? Look at you, you go. Oh, no, that's totally okay.
This is great, it should go on.
So the bottom line is,
setting up for the movie now.
the bottom line is, you have elected officials who are on the board of these oil companies. You have board members who are on, they've gotten humanitarian awards. They've funded Shriners type events. They've donated to children's funds, to universities, they throw their money around and they buy it. So the best thing that you can do is expose it. Because when average citizens hear that, like people in this neighborhood hear that Independence Square, the retirement home across the street from the well, is managed by this Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles. The Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles has a private contract with a bunch of different construction companies. One of those construction companies is KDG Construction. It's owned by Lydia Kennard. That's the K in KDG Construction. Lydia Kennard is on the board of Freeport McMoRan, and she's on the board of USC. So she has a financial interest in not having any problems being reported at the well. When the average citizen who lives in this neighborhood hears that somebody who makes, you know, a couple $100,000 a year is in charge of complaints, environmental safety, and building across the street from the oil field, that makes us not trust the oil company or that person. So the best thing you can do is you can expose it. We have a lot of activity going on here. Yes.
I live in West Adams Heights, Sugar Hill, HPOZ. So, and I walk my dog by the Fracking Center almost every day, and also by Whitney High School and 23rd Street. So this is where I am.
Yeah.
And our our neighborhood association, which our president is Billy Green, who works in Wesson's office as one of the field deputies.
Oh, right.
So starting with, when we have a bunch of meetings, and starting with our December meeting, we were talking about what the hell is going on down there? What are those big metal walls that have gone up? What are the sounds we're hearing? What's going on? So every month we're getting reports back, and there was a meeting that Wesson and the oil company and someone else had, because Wesson said, "I'll get right on it. This is what I understand." And so Billy came back to us, maybe it was January, because people were very concerned. They're not fracking. Don't worry. They're not fracking. They are doing this horizontal acidization, but it's not fracking. And I said, So they're not doing hydraulic fracturing, no, it's acidization. And I know, and also, the city council has passed this thing. So my concern, which has come up before in this meeting, but I have two concerns, which is this changing the terms and then saying is something different. And we have to make sure that we're very, very clear. And also, the city council will only move as far as they are pushed. And that was a whip-ass thing that they passed in January.
It was a start.
It was whip-ass. I have been a city
You mean in March? You mean last
for a
No,
long
the city
time.
council,
To
in
say,
January.
yes, and I understand that you're looking at it as a step. I tend to get angry when it's, my own way. But to say, yes, probably not a good idea, and yes, we should probably do something about it, I don't find very strong. And they need a lot of pressure to be told, we need to make this a fracking-free zone.
Yeah.
That's what they need to do. And I think the organizing is very exciting. I think that it is a matter of, I'm a union activist. I've been asking Dolores, is my union, has been my business rep actually for about 15 minutes too. So of course it's important for labor to get on board, and the building and trades unions are always, they're always conservative, and they always say no, but there are so many more of us. But I think one of the things to keep in mind that I think is so important when we're fighting on an issue like this, like fracking, we have many different groups and organizations coming together for one goal, and that's to get rid of fracking, right? So we come in with different vantage points, right? So while I respect you and Freeport Water Watch not agreeing with asking for taxing of the oil wells, or that's your position, but you know what? My position is all of these corporations that are making a lot of money need to be taxed so that we can pay for these cleanups and for schools. And if it were a matter of, well, if they pay, then they're going to be able to say what the rules are. Well, we pay right now, and let us say what the rules are. So I say, let's go for what we really want. No fracking, let's tax them. So, and that I think we just have to keep in mind that we can't say, well, if we're for fracking, we can't say that we're for taxing the businesses to pay for schools. That's your position, I respect that. But, others may really go for that. So
let me respond to a couple of things that I think are misinformation or that got confused. We are calling for a ban on fracking in California. The LAC moratorium that was advanced last month is being written. They voted for the city attorney to write the language to stop fracking, to stop acidizing, to stop travel hacking, to stop any form of toxic well stimulation, and to stop wastewater disposal, which is to cause earthquakes. That's what the motion directs the city attorney to do. It's being written.
good.
So to convert, it's not saying this is a good idea, we should move forward with it. It's directing the city attorney to write the language, and there's never been a case in the history of the city of LA of them directing the city attorney to do something and then it not passing. However, if there's any cases, it could be this one.
Once it's voted, I'll believe it.
Yeah, exactly. You are so right.
Here's the nuts and bolts
That's what we
problem
gotta do.
that you have.
Yeah.
A nuts and bolts problem that you have is you have 2,000 sites, not wells, sites in the state of California. When we talk about sites, in Culver City, they wanted to drill 200 new wells on a site. So you can have dozens of them. You've got 2,000 sites and you have 195 inspectors. You have a math problem. So the biggest danger we have right now is oil companies and oil development, it's self-reporting. They tell you they're not acidizing. We have a little bit of acid here to clean, just like you have to have additives in gasoline to clean your engine for all the junk that it picks up as it drives down the freeway and, oil clean. That's what they're saying they're using. Well, there's no one there to check. There's no one there to say, you know what? Actually, you're not using acid just to clean. You're shooting 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 pounds of toxic acid down the wells, into the earth, near the groundwater, storing it on site, and so you can neutralize it and get it out of there before somebody inspects. There's no one to check on that. And we know, and anybody who has a child knows, self-reporting doesn't work. Did you do your homework? Yes. Can I watch TV now? Yes. See, look, they didn't do their homework and they're watching TV. I mean, self-reporting doesn't work. Oil companies will lie right to your face about whether or not they are fracking, whether or not they are acidizing.
So, in response to this is exactly what we're saying, is that we need all of you, to make sure the language in the next 2 months is written as fast as possible, is as strong as possible, and you put the pressure on that city attorney, and you make sure there's 10 votes that say yes, and they do not compromise, they do not weaken that language. That includes all of the well stimulation technologies, the wastewater injection. That's what we need to happen right now. It's not a big deal. And so that's what we need. And I'm happy to answer more questions on the second issue of the tax issue, but I can tell you, I can give you 4 case studies of other states that have passed taxes on the oil industry, and all of them cannot pass statewide legislation to even regulate fracking. They can't pass a moratorium. They can't pass city things because all the unions, all the schools are dependent upon that money, and it's a very, very big deal.
I would go the other direction with unions. I would go the other direction of my health is at risk. Where is my union rep on this? I want the water tested at my school. I want a methane gas detector on site at my school. I want the soil tested. Like every month, I want it tested all the time. I want the health, test it. Because one thing unions do not want is to be sued. And they'll be sued.
And LAUSD, I think it was a year ago that they passed a resolution in support of a statewide moratorium. But like other states, I have a colleague in New Mexico and Colorado, and they're like, we can't get these to do anybody because they're getting all the funds from the oil industry. It's very messy.
It's a lot of money that they donate. And when they donate to a small organization, when they donate to a daycare, $10,000 to a daycare, that's a lot of money.
We're talking about taxes that, okay, they're taxed, they don't have a say, and I think we have to fight that they don't have a say. These people are taxed, they used to be taxed years ago, before the 70s?
Right.
Corporations paid more taxes.
But they're people now.
Well, that's
And I'd like Texas to execute a few of them.
Yes.
Well, just another thing, I think sometimes, you may get a pushback from some of the union higher-ups, but their members don't always feel the same way.
Right.
So we have to reach the people that are on.
But also you have these oil companies that donate to organizations that unions and elected officials and other corporations and foundations that they're sympathetic to. They donate to the Special Olympics, or they donate to, an athletic fund of, somebody's kid's alma mater. I mean, when you're talking about, Freeport McMoRan has 1 million tons of gold stored. They haven't even mined it all yet. The gold mine, the Grasberg gold mine in Papua New Guinea it is termed as an endless supply of gold. They have no idea how much gold is in there. $10,000 is change they find cleaning the sofa. Change the maid finds when she's cleaning their sofa. I mean, $250,000 in finding these people is nothing. $6.8 million in fines in the state of Arizona. It's not that much money to them. It's the ability to stop them from producing them.
And that's what they're most terrified about, why they're taking out full-page ads today.
That's right. Well, we've gone over. Thank you very much for, if anyone has any questions, you can get in touch with CoWatchingOilLA on Facebook. And thank you